What is up, comic fam? Hello to all the DC fans out there, and happy Tuesday. That means it's New Comic Book Day, part one of two every week. If you're lucky enough to get your DC books on Tuesday. So we're going to dive into what came out today, talk a little bit about all that stuff, and even look a little bit farther to see what comes out tomorrow. But first, check this out. So let's dive right into it. I got a good friend here with me. We have Mr. Flo Dameron of the Bada Boom Podcast. Flo, what do you know?
What is up? What is up?
So we're going to hit the plug on the front end of the show. Go ahead and tell people where they can find you and what you do and what you have coming up.
Yeah, so we have the podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, and now YouTube. So go subscribe to the YouTube. Last week we had Dan Waters, which was awesome because last week also issue 2 of Sword of Azrael came out. And coming up, we're working on things. This week we don't have an episode recorded, but with Comic-Con coming up in New York City, we're working on getting some interviews for that too. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
Are you excited for NYCC?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a family tradition at this point. I've been going since 2011, so This will be 11 years. I haven't gone 11 times because obviously pandemic, but it's always great. Last year was awesome because with the limited capacity, I felt like I could do cartwheels in there.
It'll be a lot different this year, I'm sure.
Yeah. The ticket, there's still tickets on sale, so I'd imagine, but there's some really good celebrity guests. I'm excited to see some writers in person. I have all my Ram V books stacked up, my Dan Mora books stacked up, so I could go.
Dude, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
just, getting a bunch of those signatures and stuff.
Yeah, and just kind of like what I've been loving. It's been cool to finally get, because I feel like I've been reading a lot more this year than in years past. So to kind of like geek out with some of the writers of these great DC books is going to be awesome.
When I think about certain cons, I don't really think about like the aspect of going and meeting the creators. It's more like these exclusives and stuff. That's what you only hear people talk about and everything. It's kind of weird, the dynamic of cons, how different places, different cons are kind of known for different things. Yeah,
and I think New York definitely has a reputation for having a really great artist alley because it's so spacious and obviously it's a big market, so a lot of creators make it there. And it also has like some really good, like almost every big vendor's there, so you do get a little bit of both. I think what we don't get is some of like the exclusive news drops that maybe like San Diego gets.
I don't think anybody gets those.
No one gets those. It's in California. It's in the summer. Those movies are coming out in the summer, but we do get a lot of great celebrity guests, great comic book creators. There was a time Marvel and DC were based out of New York. DC is now in Burbank. So it used to be like the DC booth used to be lit back in the day. Now it's, not great.
Yeah, it's kind of a hollow shell of what used to be. Even their offices they're pretty much working from home now.
Yeah, it used to be awesome, man. They used to have like one that rivaled like Marvel, like it used to be in the center of but now it really is just like pretty lame. Like they always kind of put it in the back, and it's always just like, it's cool because they put the costumes of the movies out sometimes, but it doesn't get the action the Marvel booth has.
Let's say hey to the chat real quick because I just seen some pop in. We had Tylox in here early. What is going on? Wheelchair Superhero 87. What is up? Kyle. Kira Carter. That's my niece. How are you today? Pops is up in the building. Christian said, hi, Mark, Sam, and Christian. Those are some of my employees up at the kennel. My ear has not popped yet. Has not. And you should be bleaching right now, my good friend. Not getting paid to watch me on YouTube, so go get to work. What is going on, Las Crucias? Tylox, how are y'all? Gene Marlowe, how are you doing today? Good afternoon. There's definitely some cool stuff dropping at NYCC that I'm excited for. Big Time Collectibles announced that they're going to be doing another one of the anniversary specials for Death of Superman. This time it's a red foil cover with a black Superman symbol on it. Definitely pumped for that. All right, well, I'm a big fan of multitasking, so I approve that. Definitely approve that. And then I think it was the Comic Mint that's doing the foils of Detective Comics 27 and Action Comics number 1, which I'm a definitely a fan of the Action Comic 1. I collect all those reprints.
Yeah.
And John Jang, I forget what book it is. I think it's called Good Boy.
Yeah, Good Boy has I think he has like the No Mas New York City Comic-Con exclusive.
Yes, Volume 3, Issue 1, I believe, is the number of it.
Yeah, and as we get closer, there's going to be more. I think some of the indies will probably have, like Scout and Aftershock will probably announce some things. And I think Common Mint hasn't revealed all their exclusives yet.
They normally do a lot.
Yeah, and then I know San Diego had some really good ones in terms of like Boom. So maybe Boom is going to announce some things. Like they had a really cool Grimm at San Diego. I wonder if they're going to do one at Comic-Con. Yeah, and it's going to be dope, man. Frank Miller's going to be there, and Jim Lee.
That's this weekend, right? This coming weekend?
No, it's first weekend of October.
Oh, wow. We're still a ways out. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot more announcements.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close, but it's cool, man. Brendan Fraser's going to be there, Oscar Isaac. It's going to be a big show. I'm excited.
You want to get Brendan Fraser to sign a Batgirl comic for you?
It's funny. He was doing interviews for The Whale, and they were asking, him and his co-stars, like, hey, what do you guys got coming up? And he's like, Batgirl. And then he like laughed.
That movie, The Whale, has me interested. I didn't know about it or hear about it or anything until I saw the clips of him getting the high praise at the film festival for his performance in it. Yeah. And then I realized it was a Darren Aronofsky film, so I'm like, now I definitely want to see it.
Yeah. Have you seen Mother?
Mm-mm.
Great Darren. It was his last movie that he did with Jennifer Lawrence. I love that movie.
Yeah, he's a really good, really talented director. I have to check it out. But moving over to comics for today, got a small stack. I've got, I think, 5 books that I picked up that were on my pool this week, and I grabbed a couple of extra things while I was there. Some stuff that was in the back issue boxes. It just showed up to the shop, and I have all these, and I even have a set that's for sale on Pop's Attic. I think they might have gotten picked up, but these are newspaper special editions. They were included in the actual newspapers that came out, reprinting a bunch of famous Spider-Man stories. They came out around the time of the Tobey Maguire movie. So that one was for Spider-Man 1, and they had one for Amazing Fantasy. So I picked up just those 2.
Were those printed in like the Daily News or the New York Post or something like that, or was it?
We had them here in the Augusta Chronicle. So
okay, cool.
Yeah. So I think that they were out like nationally in just different newspapers. But they're super cool, and yeah, I saw that. I'm like, yeah, why would I pass up on that? And then I went back and looked in. Let me see if they have ASM 1, and they did. So I got those 2. They were $1 a piece. Can't beat it.
They're reprinting ASM 1 again, right, for some special edition or something like that coming up. I may be like making that up, but I feel like that's in my head for some reason.
We got Mr. Steve Berkland in the building. I feel like I need to straighten my tie when I say his whole name. Steve Berkland. You need one what, Steve?
Probably one of those reprints.
I'll sell it to you. So another back issue that I picked up today was Earth Prime issue 4, which was this Earth Prime series is going through. It's basically the CW universe, and every issue is like a one shot of a different TV show. And this was for the Stargirl one, and it's the movie photo variant. So I wanted to grab this. It's from a few weeks back. I mean, it's not new, but
I've been meaning to tell you. I just started Stargirl the other night.
Season 1, like just started
it's
it.
First time I ever watched it, ever. So you're on episode 7. I like it. There are some like weird editing things that I'm like, that is like really weird. But it's when it comes to CW, when it first aired, it was on DC Infinite. So
this was a weird one. It's kind of like a love child between the two, because this is the first DC Infinite that was a Berlanti production.
Yeah.
The rest of them weren't. So it was already, when they made it, they knew it wasn't going to stay on there for long.
Yeah.
They knew that they were getting absorbed. So it's kind of weird, but it's not like when people think, oh, I don't want a CW show. It's not. Yeah. It's definitely its own thing.
It's its own thing. And I think because it started on Infinite, it definitely has its own flavor. And it's the one where it's actually appropriate, where it kind of has the teeny drama stuff, where it like makes sense, and it's cool, like the way it deals with, the generational stuff. I really like it.
What do you think of that first episode, that intro?
I
With
thought,
Pac rushing to the house and the whole battle, and you see the green flame flying out of the
yeah,
building.
it's pretty dope. But I was, it's like one of those things. It's like, well, if the villains could just like wake up one day and kill everyone, why didn't they do this earlier? So it's like one of, and also, Stripesy. I'm like, how is he not dead? He's just walking in, no armor, just like ah. So, but I like it because it has that. I think when Johns writes, around the JSA and stuff, there's obviously a reverence and a respect. When my introduction to like Johns and his writing with those characters was the Smallville episode. That's actually like the one season of
Absolute Justice,
yeah,
yeah.
that I have on Blu-ray, and that those two episodes were amazing. And I think anytime he writes those characters, it's you can tell like, hey, this guy, he gets it. He loves these characters, and
But you had some familiarity with the season one stuff, like because Smallville, it started out with Icicle killing Starman, like that's
yeah,
what kicked it off. Yeah, definitely some fun Smallville stuff. What is going on? Blue Hellion is in the building. Flash 6792, good to see you, my good friend. It's not like the Smallville show, LOL. No, it's not. It's not. But Smallville did do a Justice Society special. They had a big event on that show. That was really cool. So down to the new books. I know you're excited about this one. Go ahead and start with it. Batman versus Robin, spinning out of the pages of Robin and World's Finest. We're getting this crossover special written by Mark Waid.
No, that's awesome. One, it's a great title, just because I don't know if anyone's seen the animated movies, but those were really awesome and great Damian stories. That's how I was introduced to Damian. I'm excited to see them go head to head, especially like I think it's pretty sad that Williamson's run on Robin just ended, because I felt that book would have more legs in terms of like going, possibly 30, 50 issues. But it is good to see a writer like Mark Waid kind of take the reins. And, I'm not really a big fan of event books, but this is one I'm definitely like jumping into.
Yeah, and I think when you hear event book, it isn't necessarily like a summer event. It's just a little crossover, a little special. But I did read that one. I read it first thing this morning digitally before the shop opened, and it was good. It was solid. Some other really cool characters that get kind of call out. We know what it's about, like no spoilers, but what we saw in World's Finest, the first arc with them fighting the demon Nazah, he's the rollover character that's kind of behind this whole thing. They kind of hinted at in Robin that the resting place of that demon was actually Lazarus Island, and Robin went and woke him up basically in the final pages of that. So we're dealing with magic. And when you're dealing with magic, you're dealing with a lot of cool characters in DC. So I think they're going to have fun with this.
And it has a great artist on it. I think his name is Mahmoud Azar. Like his art is really, really great. And the way it's colored too, it looks very similar to the way like Dan Mora's art looks like in World's Finest. So it's a really good like transition, and it has its.
I was bummed to not see Dan Mora on it though. There's definitely some good art.
We are blessed to have a monthly with him doing interiors. Artists like him can make a living just doing covers and commissions and be fine. So the fact that we're able to get a book with him and Mark Waid that's a monthly is I'm grateful for just that.
Does he do the interiors on Once and Future as well? I know that one's out to finish up, but I never read it. I knew he did the covers. I didn't know if he was the interior artist as well.
I think he's the interior artist on that. I never read it either, but that's clearly something that really put him on the map in a lot of ways.
Speaking of being put on the map, and I don't know how that properly segues or not. Next up, we have Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue number 15. This is supposed to be the big battle between John Kent and Henry Bendix on the nation of Gamora. They're finally coming to a head. They kind of invaded Gamora in the last issue. So I don't really know what else to say about this one. It's been a slow burn. I feel like they're just kind of biding their time until Clark returns.
Yeah, I stopped reading it. I think that first arc was really good because it did feel like John was becoming Superman of Earth, and it's like, well, now the real not that Clark is coming back, so it's like, why should I read this book? And it's gonna get to the point where it feels like, hey, maybe aging him up was a mistake, because the interesting stories now to tell would probably be between him and Damian.
I don't know. See, I'm of the camp that I think that by aging him up, you actually make him a comparable character to Damian, because Damian, he's young, but he's not a kid.
Yeah.
So like Damian next to 12-year-old John, like Damian should be his babysitter. There's no equality on mental level whatsoever. But I like the age thing, and I think that the best part of this book, it was early on, like before Clark left, with that dynamic between him and his dad. It was written so well. I know Philip Kennedy Johnson, being the writer, has a lot to do with that. I don't think just any writer could pull it off as well. But that age is that, like, he's still a young man, he's still a teenager. So I think that they have a lot more stories they could tell them at this age, because there's a lot more responsibility and a lot more learning for him to do than a 12-year-old that it's his job just to listen to what he's told. That's just my perspective on it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people
it's hard
really
because,
like that little boy.
He's such a young character, so he's still very being, formed. There's a lot of stories to tell and stuff. And, sometimes when you do like a certain take on it, you're like, hey, I would like this writer to stay on it, or him to stay at this stage of his life for a little bit. But I did like a part of the reason I've kind of stopped reading. So I really liked the future state stuff. I did love Superman and Wonder Woman. I loved
that was awesome.
League. That was so good. The Justice, like those two issues were so good. And
I love the dynamic of the League too. Like nobody was what you would typecast them as. Batman wasn't the detective, Joe was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just the little differences in the team dynamic. It was really good.
And it played really well. That's why I like Superman kind of like fell off a little bit. I did, again, those first issues were amazing. I thought it captured the essence of like what Superman should be. And then again, that's the sad thing about like tie-ins and stuff, because you can tell when the foot is off the gas a little bit in terms of like,
it's definitely off the gas, because you mentioned the first story arc, but here's the bad thing: we're 15 deep. We're still on the first story arc. You know what I'm saying? We're still just dealing with Jay and the people of Gamora trying to go free the other people of Gamora from Henry Bendix. And it's just been too spaced out, really. And I know that they've done a lot of cool, like, individual moments. Like, you'll have these very personal Tom Taylor knock it out of the park moments and issues, and that'll leave a good taste in your mouth. But when you stop and look back on it after you've read it and it's been a couple weeks at the story, like, dude, this is just, I can synopsis this in 3 sentences and we're 15 issues deep.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been enough character growth or story development to really account for 15 issues. But here we are. But I'm a Superman diehard, so I'm in it for the long haul. I'm in it for those.
And it's not bad, it's not a bad book by any stretch of imagination.
It's written really well.
You just, for something that I feel like should be a landmark like series, it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere.
Yeah, it feels like Son of Kal-El instead of Superman.
Yeah, exactly. It's Superboy. Just call it Superboy, and I think it would make sense. And I think it should have a little bit more adventure to it. A little bit more of that Superboy weirdness, where he has like one-off issues where maybe it doesn't tie into an overarching villain or anything like that.
Well, there's 2 issues that Jackson Hyde popped up in when you actually had that sea creature coming out. I don't know if you read that one or not. That was fire. Like, you had a giant sea monster that was woken up and sent toward the city by Bendix, and he had to find a better way to stop it, and he did. It was awesome. That was the one time we had a little story inside of this run. Yeah, we definitely
character too, where you're like, if certain writers and certain stories get a hold of him, he's amazing. And then there's certain like stories where you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's a undervalued character right there, and he's been around a while too.
Yeah, I wish they approached him the same way they approached him in the Young Justice series, the cartoon, because there's a definite like, hey, this person's a leader, and and is like so stoic and very different from like Arthur in a lot of ways.
The whole dynamic with his dad too, like that adds so much
Yeah.
angles to the character that you can run with. Well, I'm excited for where this is going. I know once Clark gets back, the first thing that they have to do is deal with Lex. So that'll be interesting because we had the Son of Kal-El anniversary issue where he actually did a chess match with Lex, which that was awesome watching those two interact one-on-one for the first time like that. So I'm just excited for Clark to come back, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And he's technically back now, but I'm excited to see what happens now. But
Yeah.
Next up, the second to last issue of one Gideon's Jurassic League, covers by Daniel Warren Johnson, which are super dope. I don't know if this covers Daniel Warren Johnson. He might be all the way off the book at this point. He is. He's not even credited on it.
They're like sold the first issue with him, and then we're like, hey.
Yeah, he's not even credited anymore on the front of the book. It does say cover by Daniel Warren Johnson right there, but
I guess maybe he came up with the concept and was like, hey, I got a Doer Power Bomb going. You take
Juan Gideon's concept. Juan Gideon's everything. They just used Daniel to help kickstart the series with his namesake, I think. Give him the A covers, and we'll throw his name on there. I think he helps like a little bit of putting the story together, making sure the structure or whatever. But this is absolutely Juan Gideon's credit. I'm having fun with it. It's exactly what you'd expect it to be. They're dinosaurs, but the superhero version of them. We had Darkseid wake up in that last issue finally that's been building up to it. So I'm excited to see how they kind of bring in some of the plot threads in this issue to give us that last issue and tie it up, because it's 6 issues and I don't see him doing any more anytime soon, but it's definitely fun. Definitely fun. Circumstances says he's been reading Kal-El and just jumped in on action. Pumped for this Lexor. Yeah, it's a good time to jump in on Superman. We just finished the World saga, so the very next issue of Action Comics is the start of something great, and we're coming up on issue 1050 that's getting celebrated as a landmark issue. Amazing covers coming. Alex Ross is even doing an Action 1 homage. There'll be a foil version of it out there. John Jang's got a cover for it. It's gonna be fun.
Gannon, Dan Mora. There's like the list of art. I'm sure there's gonna be a Jim Lee one. It's just insane.
I want to go look at the moves depicted in this chess match between Clark and Lex. John and Lex. Also, I'm imagining the Joker just flipping the board. It was a very interesting issue. It was fun. Next up, we have one Dark Crisis tie-in this week, and it's A World Without a Justice League, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter. I had to stop and look and see if they changed the title of these. We're officially no longer in Dark Crisis. We're in Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths as the full working title. But they're just sticking with Dark Crisis on the trade dresses, I guess. So we get to see what's going on with Diana as well as John Jones in this issue.
Dan Waters writes the Martian Manhunter backup story in that one.
Yes, he does.
We got to talk about a little bit on the podcast.
What they did not talk about on the podcast was anything not DC. I noticed when I was listening to it at one point, he goes, "Yeah, that's about all I have to say about the DC stuff." And you're like, "Okay." Asked another DC question.
Yeah. I was like, "Yeah, that's what we want to talk about." No, but he was awesome. Like,
great.
That's to geek out a little bit about Martian Manhunter because I was reading at the time the John Ostrander run, which is amazing if you haven't read it, with Tom Kendrick. It's really good. It's really good. And there's a really good issue we were kind of talking about where he goes to Japan, and in Japan there's a Martian Manhunter cartoon where he's like a mech, where like a kid turns into like a Martian Manhunter mech, and for some reason he uses that to he himself to defeat the villain of that issue turns into a mech. And it's awesome. It's just great comic book storytelling. It's just like a great one-off issue that I would give to like a 5-year-old and be like, "Hey, this is why comics are great."
I'm about to check it out. Did you read it on the DC Universe Infinite app?
Yeah, that's what
like 30 something issues.
Yeah, 37. There's a issue 0. I think it ties into like DC a million, and there's some other stories that kind of like tie in. But if you're looking for like the definitive like Martian Manhunter story, that's it.
I would say I'll check it out, but there's no way I'm going to get 30 something issues of back issues done any time in this decade.
Well, living in New York, I always have my train ride, so that's how I get
That
there.
makes sense. Whenever I'm commuting, I can't read because I'm behind the wheel of the car.
Exactly.
It's not suggested reading time.
Yeah.
Last book I have for new comic books this week, the DC ones at least. That's all that's available on Tuesdays, and I'm pumped to finally have this. It was delayed from last April, and I can't even imagine like the FOC for this had to be January or something. But
Yeah.
we finally have The Flash, The Fastest Man Alive, issue 1 of 3, the official movie tie-in for the upcoming Flash film that has also been delayed, but they're finally giving us the book. I have read this, highly enjoyed it. It delivered exactly what I'm looking for in a movie tie-in book. The
I'm
only thing
surprised
I hate,
it wasn't canceled altogether.
there's no movie photo variants for it, which is such a waste. Such a waste.
Yeah, but who they would have to put on a photo variant. So I don't think they really want to. I think it's there's a reason why Flash is wearing his mask on the cover. Yeah, but I'm sure Ben Affleck is a lot more expensive than Ezra.
Well, they own the rights to their photo. They can take the photo of them from the movie and put it on anything without paying the actors, I'm
fair
sure.
enough. But I don't know how, being that it's so far off, if the promotional images are like ready. Like for example, Black Adam, like all those promotional images are, we're right
Just now
there.
rolling out.
And I'd imagine that even though there's no photo variant now for that particular book where it sits, when the movie comes out, the Flash ongoing is going to have a photo variant. The Batman is probably going to have a photo variant.
Well, we'll see, because they've done them for all the movies as they've been releasing the movies and stuff. They always do the thing across all their titles. They have a movie variant, whether it's an artist depiction at least, or like Peacemaker didn't get a movie photo variant, but he had all the different artist depictions of the Peacemaker show and stuff.
Yeah. I think that probably had to do with it being HBO Max, maybe that. But that was a weird. Now that you say that, I'm like, that's weird, because they've done it for the CW shows with those Earth Prime series.
But have they done it with each show? Because I know Stargirl one they did, but I don't really pay
Batwoman one.
Okay, I don't watch the other CW shows.
I don't either. I think there was a Flash one. But I got to give DC credit, because I noticed. I mean, you never watch the credits of a trailer on YouTube, but on my 100th rewatch of the Black Adam trailer, it actually advertised the comics at the end of it, which is something they did with the Batman, and I really appreciate, because you just never see it tie back to the comics, and I think that's why, sadly, little by little, these things have gotten diluted, and they've gotten forgotten because they don't get like, for example, Marvel doesn't even do movie variants or even TV show variants.
Mm-hmm. Someone pointed out the comics shouldn't tie you to the movies. The movie should send you to the comics.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time. And that's why I have like a hard time with some of the film properties, because if I don't like them because they don't represent the comics whatsoever. And I made the point, if someone were to be introduced to some of these properties via the movie, and that's cool, let me go check out the comic. And they go look at the comic like, this is not what I saw. This has nothing to do with, it's not even familiar. They say this is the character by name, but that's pretty much it. And that's not how it should be. You don't have to follow everything by the letter whatsoever, even close, but you should have that essence. And that's not too much to ask for the essence of the characters to be there.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of kids have gravitated towards manga. They watch the anime, they go to the books, and it's like, hey, this is actually, if I read this, I'll actually know what's going to happen. And it's a pretty one-to-one experience. So there's something to that.
So in regards to this, this is supposed to bridge the gap between Justice League and the Flash film. And I know that a lot of people out there aren't necessarily big fans of the Flash. Taking Ezra Miller and the person out of it, just the actual character and the way he was represented in Justice League, I know a lot of people didn't necessarily care for it. I liked him. Like, that was like a tear up moment for me when he does his big thing at the end. Like I enjoyed him. I get that he's goofy, and I get why some people have that feeling about him. But I kind of get Zack Snyder's direction, what he was doing, like with that long game. He was introducing Barry as the person who's stuffed in a suit, not Barry the hero, the Flash. He didn't even have his name, the Flash, in the Justice League movie. He wasn't called the Flash yet. Didn't even have a nickname. That happened in the crossover on CW. Actually, it was Grant Gustin that gave him the name the Flash. But this is supposed to be refining him. So when we see him in the movie, there's going to be a big difference from what we saw. And this is explaining that shift, him trying to be a hero, him trying to work in his city, and him failing at it, needing help. And we have this old grizzled Frank Miller-esque Batman that's the one that's trying to give him pointers and teach him. So we have the new suit. Is that going to be addressed in the movie, or is it already going to be? We have him not just pushing people, but fighting. And there's a lot of stuff like that I'm hoping gets addressed. And after reading the first one, they're already knocking this kind of stuff out of the park. I really, really enjoy the comic book prequel stuff. Even for Man of Steel, they touch on a lot of stuff that's considered canon by the film creators that they don't necessarily include in the movie. So if you're excited for the movie, if you want to know more, I highly suggest picking this up.
And Flash titles now are just awesome. The Jeremy Adams run has been amazing. The way that character is tied into other books is really, really good. So it's a really good time to be a Flash fan. Sadly, the movie's been, we got a Moon Knight series before we got a Flash movie. So it's pretty sad in that regard. But, all signs point to this movie being amazing, on top of what we're going to see with Black Adam. So hopefully, better days are ahead.
Yeah. And in the defense of that, we had a live action $1 million per episode Flash TV show as early as '93.
Yeah. I mean,
so where is that?
There's a great character that's been represented in media. And, as much like shit the CW gets, like those first 2 seasons of Flash are, you could put them up against any comic book storytelling, and, it holds up really well even to this day. So, I think part of why we never got a movie is like, well, the show was doing so well early on and telling that story. So,
and I grew up with the Flash on TV.
And it's awesome. When I was a kid, I never watched it while it was on the air, but anytime it was on, or I'd catch it like, a rerun or something, I'm like, I'm watching this.
Yeah. So we're going to have to cut it off short. I've been watching out the window. The wife just pulled up with the kiddos and with lunch. So that's a wrap, folks. 30 minutes in, not bad. Flo, thank you so much for hopping on. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Be sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe. I'm going to be posting, hopefully, real soon here, the 1,500 subscriber giveaway entry, which I'm well past it, but I've just been collecting stuff to give away. So making it worth it here. But I appreciate everybody, and I hope you all have a good day. And with that, I will leave you with this one.
And you're welcome to come use one of the 8 easels we have set up for creating art here at the show for consideration for our art auctions on Saturday for our major auction at 8 p.m. at the Westin Ballroom. And the smaller auctions we'll have here on the convention floor on Sunday starting at noon.
That's a flash from the past.
So any